Welcome to the space where creators have aligned a positive and intellectual collab of open minds. For sharing and learning from one another, it's a vibe. ReadswithRosa podcast on the mic. Subscribe, educator spitting bars. I guess you didn't know I'm multifaceted and humble, checking off life goals. The classroom is my comfort zone where I plant and sow seeds of knowledge, compassion, empathy, and hope. Welcome to the Reads with Rosa podcast. I'm so excited to introduce to you today's guest. Welcome to the show, Angelina Tuiali'i. Welcome, sis.
Hi.
Man, it's so good to have you here. How are you doing?
Good. Man, it's been a long time since we last met. Hooray.
For real, man.
I haven't grown since then, so still the same height.
I was going to say, are we? No, not okay.
Yeah, still the same height.
Man, it's so good to see you, sis. It's good to see that you're well. And doing your thing in your local community, and doing well in your career, which we will get into real soon. But before we do any of that, I just wanted you to just do a little brief introduction. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Cool. Oh gosh, it's so great to be on here. So talofa lava, malo lava soifua. Lo ingoa Angelina Tuiali'i. So I am Samoan. I'm from a small town called Lina near Wellington. Everyone knows where the capital city of New Zealand is. So I'm currently living here. Our family's been here for about 22 years. I'm a mum of one, single mum of one. I guess we're gonna get to learn more about myself. But mum is from Salelesisi Umu and dad is from Lauli'i and Fungasalai.
Yeah, give it up. Yeah, thank you, sis. Thank you. Welcome again. Yes, we are going to get right into it. I guess first of all, I wanted to just get into your career. You are a Pasifika, a community nurse. What inspired you to get into nursing in the first place?
I was kind of forced into it. So what had happened was I hated science in college. I dropped it as soon as I finished year 10 in Samoa College back in Samoa because my marks were terrible. Nothing was clicking in my head. I just didn't get it. Wasn't until 2005 when I gave birth to Cadence. And my mum, who's a nurse, she trained in Samoa. And she said to me, na kaunga alu faiso go look for a stable career to get a good future for your daughter. You've got someone you're responsible for now. And so she said, why don't you go do nursing? I didn't have any other plans for future at that time except look after my daughter and go see mommy and dad and do local stuff. And so I was like, yeah, sweet. So she drove me from Levin to Pami, which is like a 40-minute drive, with baby in the back. And I stepped into the class because it was a mainstream. In that intake, there were only, I'd say, a handful of Māori and Pasifika students in that class. So already I fell out of place. But yeah, mum waited until my first day was over in the car with baby, because I didn't have a car and I didn't know how to get to Pami from Levin. So she took me, and from then on, how long has it been? It was 10 years later, and I the only regret that I have was that I didn't do it when I left college.
Right. Man, you're so that's huge, right? Because like your mom said, you have someone that you've got to look after your daughter, you've got to think about her future, and just the fact that mom drove you to school and was there to support you. I mean, how important like how was it like just having your family supporting you through not just getting through school but just those early days of having baby and making these life-changing decisions and looking to education again, like how what was that like for you?
Um, it was. It. I feel like it was a second chance of life altogether. Um, Looking back in that year that we met,
Mm,
because that was around the time when I got pregnant.
mm.
E kulia e alu whailea o ngā ai e senia. I, I'm I'm confessing all my sins right now. Yeah, so looking back, I'm like, with a lot of regret, I was such a moe being, man. Am I allowed to say that?
Of
Um,
course, of course.
yeah, I
Mm,
was such a moe be. Um, you know, as soon as, because I wasn't an academic person at all. Um, I repeated year 13 twice. I went to Vic Uni, ngale ka'ale mea whai. Didn't pass any papers. Went to Auckland Uni and same thing again. I thought I was going to be a teacher of some sort in music, but that failed big time. Yeah, and then I guess if I didn't have that upbringing of reading,
mm,
then I probably wouldn't have gone back into academic studies and all at all. So it was a second chance of life. So my daughter, I always say that she's the reason why my life did a 360. Um, God knows, only God knows where I would be right now if it wasn't for her. And I remember when I flew back to Wellington and then I was getting ready to tell my parents that I was pregnant at that time. But I was at my sister's house in Porirua, and then my dad turned up from Levin to drop off our grandma.
mm.
I was like, oh, I hid in the closet. I was that scared. I was that scared of my dad that I hid in the closet, but he seen something was out of place at the
Mm,
house. And so I was like, crap, I can't hide in the closet. So I came out and then I ended up telling them and they gave me the silent treatment for a week. We drove straight to Levin. And my mum being the nurse that she was like, oi, because it was close to Christmas.
mm,
Kai mā ngai a lo mea la whau mori Christmas I koa I loa inga. She was like, oh, there's a nice Christmas present for our family. And she's still working at that time as a night shift nurse.
mm,
Yeah, so she didn't muck around. She was like, we got to do this, this, that, for I mea lea kua lea, wale koe fo I mea I loa inga.
mm,
And just never looked back. My parents, they always drilled into me that studies is important. But I also found out that I'm not the kind of person who likes big classes. I'm not a uni person. I'm a polytech person.
mm,
I also discovered my learning skills and abilities. Um, so yeah, um, after getting the opportunity to study again, like I had to do a certificate. I failed my research paper in my final year, so I had to do that again. But when I took it again, not only did I go from fail, I smashed it out with an A plus. Um, yeah, so I actually didn't stop studying since I graduated at that time. So I only stopped studying when I came out into this new role
mm,
as a Pasifika community nurse, only because the workload was getting too much.
mm,
Yes, I currently have a bachelor's degree and two postgrad diplomas
mm.
for nursing in different areas. One of them is in Pasifika Health, and the other one is in clinical nursing.
Mm.
Yeah.
Inspirational, sis. I mean, anyone can turn their life around, right? And you
Mm,
know, I just think it's awesome that your parents, that your family, stood by you and supported you. You know, like, I guess another question I have is, you know, your parents, you know, your dad's a minister. Like, how
Yeah.
challenging was that? Like, you know, you've got your family supporting you, but then you also have got your church family, and like you're the daughter's, you know, a daughter of a minister, and
Yeah.
you know how our Samoan churches are. I mean, how
Mm.
was that? That must have been another hurdle that you had to get over. Do you know what I mean? Like, what
Yeah.
was it like to go back to live in, um, and then just to have to see church again, and like, because you know the children of you know, the Fefe'au's kids, there's always seems to be this high expectation, and you know these standards that they have to meet, and people expect them to do this and that and behave a certain way. I mean, how challenging was it to get over that hurdle, like after facing your family then going back to your church family?
Yeah. It was really hard, only because of the fact that I knew that Dad prioritized the church, the old local. I remember, so everyone in our family and our church family know the kind of person that I am,
Mm.
and they know the kind of people my siblings are. So they know me as a person that talks back to my parents, where I challenge them. And I remember I was sitting at the table one day and I just blurted out to my dad, because my dad's a really strict man, but I like to push his limits, and everyone knows that. So I said, oh, why do you always put the church before your kids? And I think it really hit him, because I'd never seen him taken back after something that I said. And I think from that moment, I knew that he was starting to make the effort of balancing church family and his own family. Yeah, uh, Dad, he he was so disappointed when I told him that I was pregnant. Gave me silent treatment for a whole week, and he said he's going to tell the o local during whiwhilinga, and we have to get ready to pack and go, because there was no use of him, you know, e whare launga ai lai e se mea e whai anga whāngau. So yeah, Mum and Dad were prepared for that, but thank goodness, thank God, we have a close knit church family that they saw past that, and they saw me just as another human being, and they know how staunch my dad is and how strict he is, and they said to him, "You need to forgive your daughter. We're not letting you go as a whaiwhiao. You know, we'll get through this." Yeah, and apparently the ladies cried during that meeting. So yeah, it's good. I mean, I know that there's and high expectations on whānau whiwhiao, but being from a small town, I've also learned that we those profiling and the stereotype labels for whaiwhiao's kids, they don't exist in small towns, because we basically got to start from scratch.
Right.
And unless the whaiwhiao is from a rich extended family,
Mm.
you start with nothing on your back, you know. So I remember there was a guy who said he was shocked when I told him, "Oh, we lived in a state house when we moved here from Samoa. We had nothing with us, just the clothes on our back after Dad graduated from Malua." The families of the church, they were the ones that gave us the mattresses that we were sleeping on in the state house. They gave us these spare cars. Like, we literally only had the clothes on our back when we started the Swingalinga. So we are always grateful to our church family, and they always see past the stuff that we do as, because we're just like other kids. They've never had, I've never felt as if they've put me or my siblings up on their pedestal.
Pedestal,
Yeah, yeah. They treated us all the same. Like, if they got angry at us, it's the same anger that they showed towards their own kids as well. When they gave us advice, I would hear the same sort of advice they would give their own kids. So we're lucky in that sense, even though we weren't rich in wealth, but we were rich in family ties and that connection and the community. Yeah, so I say we were very lucky with this church family and living. Yeah.
Who are some of your career role models? I mean, you've mentioned that mum, she's a nurse. Has she retired, or she's still a nurse right now?
Yeah,
Or
nah,
yeah,
she is. Yeah, she had to go into retirement because church roles and
right.
work roles were clashing. Yeah.
So I mean, is she one of your role models, or do you have other, did you have other people around you that you could look up to in terms of like nursing and healthcare, those parts of your job? Like, were there other people? Was it really just kind of like mum, the super role model that you looked up to?
um. Yeah, mum was basically the only nurse that I knew personally
Mm,
before I started my career. And then as I progressed, I had lecturers who I really looked up to. Um, and then doing research articles, and then you come across Pasifika names
mm,
like Ka Fumono, um, or his works, and that they became role models. And as I progressed out to the working fields, then like I always tell my student nurses, you won't survive in nursing unless you build yourself a support network, and you've got to set yourself up with someone that you look up to, because nursing can be toxic in a toxic environment. And if you don't have those role models to pull you out, and say try follow in their footsteps, then you're just going to keep doubting your own skills and knowledge within the nursing field. Yeah, so a lot of them were either or are still are Māori and Pasifika nurses. Yeah.
I mean, when you started out, like when you look back to when you started out and then look at it now, in your field, are there more brown faces? Do you see more of us? Is there representation there? Like, are there? I mean, because you work in in small community, but even in your community, are there others? Is there representation in your field, or is it really just still a few of you? Doing the work in the community.
Um, so I think the first thing we need to understand is that nursing is quite a massive field. You've got your different areas. So if we were to talk in regards to are there enough nurses in ratio of Pasifika population accessing those services in those particular areas, I would say no, especially in mental health. And yeah, but there's not enough of the workforce. Um, so I know that they're currently working on recruiting more student nurses, student health professionals from the Pasifika community. But then again, our population is growing, especially in Levin. The rate that our Pasifika community is growing is increasing significantly, but we don't have the number of Pasifika workforce and health profession to cater to those numbers. Yeah, so that's an issue that is related to why our health comes are quite poor at the moment, or have been for a long time.
And do you get to use Samoan language? Other people. Do you get to speak the language like through your work, or do you know what I mean? Is there a need for Samoan language speakers, Tongan language speakers in your field, or do you just speak all those Pacifica languages?
No, 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 no. I only translate for someone. Um, Tell you what, it's one thing to translate from English to Samoan and back again, but then it's also another thing to try and interpret the medical jargon.
Mm,
And especially when your audience that you got to translate for are older than you, because you have to use upu whāloalo.
yeah.
Um, so remember when I first had to translate putting a catheter into a bladder,
Mm,
to let the urine come out. And when we're talking about the reproductive organs
mm,
and being invasive in that area, you really just can't translate it word for word.
right.
Yeah, yeah. So it's been real challenging in that sense. So when I was working in hospital, they would pull me out to translate, or they would put me with the Samoan family. So when we have meetings, then I'll just automatically go out with them. But I'd say since working out in the community, I've never spoken so much Samoan in work. Being out in the community, yeah, but it's good.
Yeah.
I think the most challenging one for me was when I was deployed to Samoa,
Mm,
and because you don't speak English at all,
mm,
except for your colleagues, and you're like, oi, masai for tomorrow, lalo, or lalo ngase ngase.
mm,
And you pick up on the language that you have to use because it's like one after the other. It comes in for an assessment, and
mm,
I remember I remember when an old man had come in and he was saying, oh, "Wuki ngara mangava." His tummy was sore, his abdomen was sore. And I was like, oh, okay. So I was starting to ask him questions just to work it up. And then, because when someone complains about abdo, you have to assess on how their bowel motions or passing wind has been. I was like, oh my gosh, I knew that upu whāloalo for
yeah.
passing bowel motions, but I didn't know that upu whāloalo for passing wind.
Right.
So I ran to the back. This is in Makokua Hospital. And I was asking the colleagues, how do I say in a respectful way,
Mm.
if he's passed wind. Yeah, yeah, they gave me the wrong words, and I don't want to say it.
Yeah, it's all right, but we get, yeah. So
Yep.
experiences, right? Learning experiences, right?
Yeah,
Learning on
yeah.
the job, and wow. I mean, well, for you, because what do you think is your most important professional like achievement?
Um, I'd have to say working in ICU.
Mm,
Working in ICU, that would have to be the toughest for me, the most challenging, not just in clinical sense, but also academic wise as well. Um, the theory and the practical knowledge for ICU, yeah, that was a huge challenge. And also, they do 12-hour shifts there. So that was a big one for me because I used to do 8-hour shifts in the ward and then going into 12-hour shifts as well. Um, but it was also the most rewarding because the skills that I gained from ICU, I was able to step out into community and be confident in my assessment skills. Um, so yeah, I mean, once you're in ICU, you can use those skill sets in any nursing field.
mm.
Yeah.
What are some misconceptions that people have about nurses? You know, like what are some, or even like stereotypes, or just these preconceived ideas that people have about nurses and health workers? that really
Thank you for
annoy
the
you?
question. Yeah. Okay, so the top one that really annoyed me was when someone said, "Oh, nurses have degrees."
Oh,
And I was like,
fight me, that's it. What a rude dude.
I know.
Mm.
It's like, oh,
They don't
yeah,
realize,
true,
eh? They
yes.
don't realize. Just, I mean, I just, I can just imagine. But man, and they say teaching
Yeah,
is hard. I'm like, man,
yeah. And
nursing.
so,
Mm,
they also think that nursing is just all about hygiene cares, personal
mm,
cares. But there's a lot of, well, I guess it depends on the individual themselves, but you can get up to, I mean, the careers you can get from nursing. Um, yeah, the other misconception is, what was I going to say? Is we get seen as just your maid in the
mm,
hospital.
mm,
Yeah. Because during undergrad, we not only learn how to do practical skills, but also how to critique
mm,
research, um, and also how to apply that in regards to um, thinking of new ways of improving health outcomes.
mm.
Yeah, so there's a lot that goes on
That people
with,
don't see and people
yeah,
don't
that
know,
people
right?
yeah, but that's general misconception.
Mm.
And the other misconception that POC nurses get in New Zealand is that we get mistaken for cleaners working in the hospital. Yeah, even though we've
What?
got the same uniform.
What on
Honestly, the
earth?
number, I know, I know the no, you, like even if we're wearing the same uniform as all the other nurses,
Mm.
some patients and their families still think that we're cleaners. Yeah,
Man,
yeah,
the audacity. I
I know,
mean,
how rude, right?
like, how do you? Because obviously you're full on with your work. So how do you find time to upskill to, like you said, there's a lot of like reading and think, that goes on in terms of like, how do you stay up to date and stay on top of your game in terms of your area of expertise, like your field?
Yeah.
How do you find time to do that on top of everything else that you do, which we haven't even touched upon yet, but we're getting to, you know?
Okay, so the great thing about the different areas of nursing is as you work, you also get given the opportunities to attend study or to attend practical assessments or skills, upgrading of skills. Now, some of these are compulsory. Like if I was to talk about my time in hospital, depending on where you work, so like I started out in orthopedic. So we would have education session days about learning about bones and how to, look after post-surgical patients. And for us to upgrade, we also have to teach as well. So that's
Ah,
part of our
nice.
yeah. So every step, every different level, as you progress with your level of nursing, you get given a set of, let's say, tasks to complete to be successful in attaining that certain area. So you've got your competent levels of nursing, then your proficient, and then your expert, senior nurse. Yeah. So not only are there protocols, stuff that we have to complete within our own field of nursing, but then because we, also answer to the Nursing Council of New Zealand.
Ah,
And yeah, so they give us domains that we have to complete, and this is how we basically we keep track of our work as well, and how we hold ourselves accountable for the set of skills that we and how we're progressing, whether it's to do with work or postgrad as well. So there's postgrad papers available. A lot of the times we can get scholarships for that, for postgrad, once you've completed your Bachelor of Nursing. So yeah, it really depends on your area where you're working and how proactive you are in progressing your own career. Yeah. And then each DHB region is different with their policies as well. But yeah, we do have stuff that's compulsory for us to complete. Yeah, to stay. And every year we have to complete an annual practicing certificate.
Wow.
And that, yeah, and also have to pay out for that as well. It's just so the public knows that we are all good to practice, that we don't have any criminal records, or we haven't done anything to abuse the relationship between nurses and patients, or nurses and the other colleagues as well. So it's keeping us in check all the time.
And have you had opportunities to volunteer overseas? I mean, I know you mentioned Samoa just before, but are there opportunities for New Zealand nurses to perhaps do an exchange in another country? Obviously, with COVID right now, but do you know what I mean? Do they have programs like
Yeah,
that in place where you
yeah,
can maybe work for organizations like Red Cross and things like that? Or
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, that's the beauty of nursing. You can take your skills anywhere, even in the paramedic field, in the army, or Red Cross volunteer as well. I've got a lot of nursing friends who have volunteered, even in South Africa or part of Red Cross. There was one nurse from ICU who has just been all over the place where there's been an epidemic. And so she was also in Samoa during the measles time as well. Yeah. So yeah, like you said, it's really up to the individual on how they
what
want to
about
take
you?
care.
I mean, later on, like obviously not right now, because you still got cadence. But is that something that you would want to do perhaps later on, maybe when she's off at uni and doing her thing? Do you see yourself doing anything like that, or is it
I'll
more
tell you,
about going back to Samoa and
yeah, tell you what, as a Pacific nurse in New Zealand, you're volunteering your time, all the even when you finish your 9 to 5 or your shift work, back in church or your community, no matter where you go, people are always gonna come across and say, "Hey, can you check this out? That's voluntary work, man. You never take your nursing cap off, no matter where you go as a
right?
Pacific nurse." Yeah,
So then how do you look after yourself? Like when we think about, like self-care, and I ask everyone that comes on the show, they come from all different walks of life and different careers and things like that. But how do you, I guess, look after yourself, treat yourself? What are some things that you enjoy doing that have nothing to do with with church or with
nursing.
nursing? Like how do you look after yourself? What do you enjoy doing?
So I've got a side hustle.
Yeah,
People
give it
find
up
it,
for the
yeah.
side hustle.
So I do makeup on the side. So when I texted you earlier, I just finished work. That
Yeah.
was my other work. That
Ah,
yeah, yeah. So um, I really get a good kick out of doing that.
nice.
And the only reason why I got into it because I was sick and tired of seeing our girls looking real ghost. And so I was like, I
Yeah.
gotta go learn how to do makeup. So I don't wear it all the time myself, but I really
Yeah.
love doing makeover on other girls. But self care, to be honest, I try and sleep where I can, or I um just watch a lot of trash TV
You're allowed
when I
to.
can.
You're allowed to. That's nice as long as you're chill and relaxing and doing feeling good about yourself and just taking time off. I think it's super, super important. What are
Mm.
some traits that you get from your parents? Uh, Maybe mom or dad. What are some traits that you get from them? Characteristics,
Okay,
good or
so
bad?
Dad, he's really good at organizing things. The way his mind works, like there's a certain procedure on how things are supposed to run, and he's always got a contingency plan in place of plan A, B, C doesn't work out. Um, so I kind of like to say that my organizational skills are from him. Yeah. um,
Okay.
the and the way he delivers his launga,
Mm.
um, he's really good at that. He's really good at captivating audiences when he presents. Um, and I love presentations. Um, Public speaking, I'll definitely say that I got that from Dad as well.
Wow.
Yeah. Um, but the funny thing is that he's really good at it in church, but anywhere else, we try to get him to do it, and he was like, "No, thank you."
That's
Yeah,
his zone. That's his space. Like
yeah,
wow.
yeah.
How about what about mom? Do you think you get anything from your mom? Any characteristics from mom?
Yeah. Probably the feistiness I get from her, and how she always likes to push Dad's limits.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but I think everything nursing wise, it's
Mm,
from her.
wow.
Yeah.
How would your sisters describe you? What would they? How would like if they could describe you in 3 words? What do you think they would say?
Ah, that bitch. No.
Oh, hey, yeah, that's 3 words. I mean, I'm
uh,
sure they look up to you. I'm sure you are their role model. I'm sure of it.
oh, I, I don't know about that. Mm, no, we're really close. We're really close. I know committed
Mm,
will be one of them,
mm,
and also they know that once I want something, I will do my best and give everything in making it happen. Um, Behind the scenes is a good way of describing me. I think that my siblings, yeah, will say that.
Interesting you bring that up because I was going to ask because I watch your sister, I know your sister dances, right? She's always doing beautiful dances at South Ball for your youth group at church,
Yeah,
and she's always like such a beautiful, graceful dancer. And every time I watch her, I always think, what was Lina's role in this? She's dressed up beautifully,
yeah,
everything from head to toe. And I always wonder, what was Lina's role in this? What did
yeah,
she do here? If I see your youth group singing or performing, you post videos, I'm going, where was Lina's role here? What part did she play? Tell
yeah,
us about tell us about your role in your youth group because like you said behind the scenes because I never see you in front
yeah,
of the camera, like I just see your
yeah,
footage and I'm like she was doing something here but she's definitely not putting herself in front of the camera. So
yeah.
tell us a little bit about your role in behind the scenes for youth group and just for church just
Yeah. Um, so performing arts wise,
mm.
it's always been a thing for me. I I'm useless at learning dances. I'm always behind the piano, like I'm always behind the scenes. Like you
Yes,
see,
you're a
yeah.
musician, of course. I keep forgetting. Yes, you are a musician. Continue.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think it's just the way my mind works. Like if I hear or see something, and then the first thing I'm thinking, oh, who can I teach this to? The kids at church, or now that my girl's in college,
Mm.
their group or my sister, or it's always like, how can I make this, put a Pacific twist to it, and
Mm.
you know, just get people involved into making it happen. Um, yeah. So the funny thing was is that I used to teach. We only have two colleges here in Levin.
Wow.
Yeah, and there was a point where no one else was able to teach like Pacific brackets.
Mm.
So when Cadence was a baby and before I started studying, that's what I was doing in both colleges and even the primary schools. Um, so it's seeing the vision in my head and executing it. And I just get my thrills from being able to teach something and then see it come to life. And
Mm.
also seeing, and now that my sister's in, but she's like the all-rounder. She can do both behind the scenes and be in front of the camera.
Mm.
Yeah. So I go around and collecting stuff as well for costumes and
Mm.
that. And so mum's a sewer.
Beautiful, beautiful. Love it.
Yeah. So and this I guess our youth is lucky where we've got a lot of talented kids.
Mm.
And yeah, with the singers, the acting. I'm still waiting for someone to help me with the kapiano, but no one wants to be that brave and learning how to play the
Yeah,
piano.
yeah.
So I'm like, damn. Yeah. Yeah, because recently we lost one of our most talented sisters,
Mm.
Abby.
Yes, I've
Who
seen
can,
you post
mm,
about her, right? So.
yeah, yeah. Um, so Abby, man, her talent was something else. And the thing that I really loved about her was that she was always in there helping others grow with their talent. If she saw something in someone, she would bring it out. Um, yeah. So she was the main singer for our youth group. And every time I would ask her to do something, she'll do it. Yeah. And she always came through, gave it 100%. Um, yeah. So it's good to see that that talent still exists within our youth group. Um, it hasn't died down with her. It's still going strong. Um, and my daughter's name is Cadence, which is a musical term.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, it's just having that drive to be creative. Because the last thing I would even want is for our kids to leave because of church being boring.
Mm.
Yeah,
Man, rest in love to Abby. I know
yeah,
I've seen you post in the past just things about her, celebrating her,
mm,
memories of her, and it's just man, it's mm. Cadence though, does she not play the piano?
funny story. She started piano lessons. My parents wanted me to teach her, but I, yeah, my patience doesn't
Yeah,
last
I was
long.
like, are you like passive aggressive?
No,
Did she quit on you or what? Did you growl
no,
her?
no. What annoys me is when she starts crying, and I've
Mm.
never do anything except say, "Do your left hand again. Practice your left hand again. Do your right hand again," and she doesn't want to do it. So all you all you hear is her play, fali'i on the keys and the tears rolling down. And I'm like, you know what? If you're gonna be like that, then don't waste your grandparents' money to go to Aonga. Oh man.
Maybe she'll find a love for it and just soon. You never know. You never know. Where does your inspiration come from though? I know you play the piano, I know you're a musician and you do choir, but where does your inspiration come from to I guess, compose music to, to come up with some of the hymns for, the Peseloku. Yeah, where does that inspiration come from for you? For
uh,
you?
so funny thing is that I actually don't like to call myself a musician only because, like, so the talents that your brother has and every other e whakasawhi pese, I I can't play by ear. Like, I'm very basic when it comes to jamming. I am a score reading girl,
Mm-hmm.
and I tend to think that the style I play is boring compared to. Even my dad's said it to me, and I was like,
Sad.
I know, but like you put a piece in front of me and I can pick it up straight away,
Mm,
and that's how I teach choir. I have to have the notes with me, but I can't. I mean, I can only pick up the basic songs for So that's why, yeah, I feel like a fake person because I can't do
stop it.
I can't
Stop
I
it.
can't I can't add the accompaniment to,
Mm,
like, it's very plain. It's just classic piano sounds. Um, but yeah, that's how I've always taught choir all these years, and it's always been just sticking to the notes, unless.
mm.
But I do rearrangements,
Okay.
and it's only when there's been a significant event like Abby's death, and
Mm,
then I compose music.
mm,
But then it doesn't sound right because I can't add accompaniments to it. I can't jam up the chords,
mm.
and so I depend on the kids to make it sound
Yeah.
good with their voices.
Mm.
Yeah, so yeah.
I can't remember. I recently listened to one of the videos you posted. Oh, the song. It's just right here on the tip of my head. I love it. It's one of the songs that I really love, and they were singing it. Um, I think maybe it was a dedication to Abby or something, but I know you posted the video. It was so beautiful. I just can't remember the song right now. It's just right on the tip of my head. Anyways, maybe I'll
Yeah,
remember it throughout the interview. I loved
yeah.
it, and I just thought, wow, your youth group is Ola. Like there's
Mm.
quite a few of them. I didn't realize that your youth group was that that big. Pretty
No,
cool.
it's not big though. That's the thing. Yeah,
Oh, you didn't think
it's
that's
that.
big?
Now they just got big voices.
Yeah, but that was it. That's why I stopped and watched the video and listened. It was exactly that. It was the voices blew me away. I was like, hey, hey. So that was very
Oh,
impressive.
thank
I can't
you.
remember the song right now. See, I'm gonna go look for it after this interview, and I'm gonna find it. It was just I know the song, and it's right on the tip of my head. Can't remember right now. Who are some of your favorite music like artists? Like what kind of music are you
Oh,
into?
so and just to go back to the inspiration,
Mm.
likes of Bowesi, Float
Ah, yes,
Went, all the old school e
yes,
whakasa
yes.
composers. Man, I've le sunga whawhiangainga le tupu. I've got
Mm-hmm.
to
Oh, yes,
remember
yes.
that he's up with out now,
Yep,
because
yep.
we actually went to summer college together, but
Wow.
he was like a few years ahead of me.
Mm.
Yeah. Man, his talent is out of this world with the way he rearranges all the old school
I know
hymns.
it's cool, man. Like I joined that
It's
that
so
that
good. Yeah.
choir. That
Oh, yeah.
I did. I think I recorded twice. But then I just kept not. I was like, Lani was like, "Have you sent in your recording?" I was like, "I can't meet the deadline because I was just getting too busy." So I think I did two recordings. Like, and he was like, "We got another one coming out." I was like, "I gotta find the time." But I loved what Letupu Rev was doing with
He's so
the
talented.
songs, man. I was like, hey,
Yeah.
and what I loved was just the old school hymns. I love those old school
Mm.
hymns, man. I was like, oh, amazing. So, so talented.
Yeah. And I love how you can still sense the essence of
Hmm.
that old school, and then when he rearranges it,
Yeah.
it's not over the top, it's not bung bung.
Mm.
And the fact that has notes for his songs as well.
Right.
Because
Which
I
is
wouldn't be
good
able
for
to pick.
someone like you.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I remember I went to Samoa in 2015
Mm,
and they had just launched Tuiali'i, his parents, where his parents were
mm,
from. They just launched their CD.
mm.
And then I also brought like 3 copies of the notes that they were selling. I was like, yes, finally someone's getting it right when they're
Right,
selling
right.
the CD and the notes.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Man, so aside from church music, which plays a big part in terms of what you do for choir at church, like what other music do you like? I mean, other what other genres of music do you like?
My favorite definitely has to be soul. So the likes
Mm,
of Erica Badu,
yeah.
Jill Scott, Angie Stone, that genre of music. Like you can play it anytime, anywhere, and it's still going to be good music. Of course, the classical Samoan songs with the Indian Kikala,
Yeah.
that can never go wrong.
Right,
Um,
right.
but I think my favorite Pacific Island music would have to be from Hawaii.
Mm.
I don't know what it is, but I just love the music.
I guess, COVID-19 and New Zealand's response, that everyone all over the world is talking about how awesome New Zealand is.
Yeah.
Um, did things like what was it like for you, and even in your community, like with the pandemic, and then I mean, is everything all good out your ways? I mean, generally they say that New Zealand's back to normal, right?
Mm. Yeah. So March of February last. Oh, when it actually started around the world.
Mm,
Um, I guess as a health professional, you already have insight, depending on where you work. Okay,
mm,
so I want to emphasize on that. It depends on where you work as a health professional, because if you work in mental health,
mm,
you don't have insight to a nurse that works in, say, like ED or an ICU. If you work in neonates or yeah, so it's really important that when someone's speaking on COVID-19, you always got to check
mm,
what their background and experience is in their field. So when the pandemic started happening and it started to hit, I remember Italy and just seeing the death rate just increase. And then it started hitting US, especially I think it was around Washington at the
mm,
time. No, New York, New York. When it hit New York real bad, one of the major hospitals in New York. Because I follow quite a few American nurses
mm,
that work in ICU in the States, and just seeing them venting on Twitter on how bad it's getting.
mm,
I remember feeling scared of that happening here in New Zealand, because with the different health sectors in New Zealand, so you've got your primary health.
mm,
This is where you, the first point of contact if you want to access health services. So your GP services, your prevention clinics, like screening for cervical, where you get vaccinated, and then your secondary, which are the hospitals. If you need surgery, that's where you go. And then your tertiary, which is the ED, cardiac, cardiothoracic wards, and your ICU wards. So the first thing I was thinking was, if our ICU beds get filled up real fast, we're pretty much stuffed,
mm,
because we have limited number of ICU beds in New Zealand. And if one hospital's ICU beds get filled, then they look at transferring those
right.
patients to another ICU in another hospital.
Mm,
So you can imagine the domino effect that it's going to have. if that was to hit little old New Zealand. So the day that they announced that we were going into level 4, a lot of us were already saying, just hurry up and lock down New Zealand already. Yeah. So I'm still going to stand by New Zealand doing the right thing. We did do the right thing by going hard and fast. And those first, was it 4 weeks of level 4?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was so
Yeah.
quick. So quick.
Mm.
Like, and I know, like, here, like, seeing the response from around the world and how they're all like, giving props to New Zealand and just how quickly they shut down the borders. I mean, New Zealand became like the poster, the example of how a country,
Mm.
should have responded. What do you think New Zealand has to continue to do in order to kind of keep everything back to normal, keep things under wraps in regards to the pandemic?
I guess continue with the MIQ facilities, because most of the positive cases are coming from overseas. And the way they're monitoring the community cases, if there is an outbreak, I think everyone in New Zealand now is used to the contact and tracing side of things, because the Pacific community have had the biggest number of response in regards to getting tested. And that's been a great thing, because it just goes to show that Pacific community really do care about the welfare of others, which is what we really need to maintain, I guess. Oh yeah, we can call it status quo for now, for remaining on level 1 for us. But yeah, it's because it's still happening, the pandemic hitting quite hard in some places overseas. So we can't take the risk, especially if we're still allowing New Zealanders to return to, I mean, we can't deny them from coming back to their home country. But we never know where the community case is going to break out again. So it's
Yeah,
just doing this, yeah.
like my parents just got their test today, like literally just got it today. Like my sister-in-law messaged, they just got their test. Their vaccine. Their vaccine is what I'm talking about. So they just went and got
Yeah.
their kui done, and I was like, but relieved about that. I was happy because I was just like, when is it gonna get to their turn? Because I know they've been rolling it out West Auckland, so I was just a bit relieved. It's one less thing to worry about. So,
Yeah.
and I was just like, when you go out, make sure you wear your mask. They're like,
Yeah.
yes, we do. Everywhere we go, when they go out to do their bills and things like that, they wear their mask. When they go to the doctors, and I was like, good, make sure. I was just like,
Good on you.
you gotta be safe, because like, I mean, when I see New Zealand and everyone's just like back, it just looks like everything's back to normal. But then here we're like, we're still, like, oh, it's just a whole nother story. And the whole thing
Are
is
you
quite
guys
stressful.
are you guys still getting community cases over there?
Yeah, it hasn't even been under control here. Like
Oh,
we've now
true.
got, yeah, I mean, they've now got state of emergency has been extended to May 31st. And
Is the death rate still rising?
it is, but it's not as huge as other countries. Like if you think about Japan, but that's not the point. The point is it's not under control at all, especially
Yeah,
with
yeah.
the Olympics. The Olympics are meant to be happening in less
Right.
than, and the thing is with the state of emergency, they were like telling companies work from home. And universities have been shut down. They're doing online learning, so they shut down universities and restaurants and things like that. But they didn't shut down schools. And we're not even like priority to get the vaccine. Do you know what I mean? Like teachers not priority to get the vaccine like other countries. Like I have teacher friends who work overseas that they've got their like first and second vaccine, shot. So I'm just like, right, I'm going back to New Zealand to get a vaccine. Like, because they just, with the Olympics, they were like, we're meant to get vaccines in Feb, then it went to March, then they're like July. and then it's like now it's September when the Olympics. It's really super frustrating. I mean, I
Yeah.
think people here it's so difficult because you just don't know where families have been. I mean, in terms of school, we've got all these things in place, um, and we just have to follow it. You know, we have these routines every day,
Mm.
starting from taking temperature in the morning. Kids have temperature sheets. We go. We got cameras. We've in place. You got to, the washing, wiping down everything. It's just this
Oh, wow.
daily routine at school
Mhm.
because they're not shutting down schools, right? And so there's just always that fear. Like I commute to work, and so they're telling people during the state of emergency to work from home. These companies, but no one's. I mean, the trains are still packed. So
Mm.
I was expecting just to see like just a whole lot of kids on the train. Because school's still in session, but so things like that. There are It's just quite frustrating because they're not rolling out the vaccine fast enough here in Japan. They just keep purchasing from overseas, and they keep updating with the different strands and stuff like that. But um, yeah, they're like, I mean, I'm just like, I just try to get to work and then straight, back home because I don't want to be getting. I'm not even trying to get COVID before I come home.
Mm.
I've already booked the test. I have booked quarantine. These even when we come back, we've got to get papers signed. We've got to take another test. There's all these things like we got to do to get out of the country, and then
Mm.
I got to come home.
How long are you staying here for when you get here?
6 to 8 weeks.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah, so it's because it's summer break. So I'm leaving the nice hot humidity to come back to New Zealand stink winter.
Oh,
I've been
unlike
wearing.
yours.
So like, I hate winter,
Unlike
man.
yours.
Yeah, exactly.
You're
I
gonna be
mean, if you,
wearing this when you get back.
man, like I'm just getting out of wearing my hoodies, man. I have a whole collection, and it's like I can't even pack the damn hoodies away because I have to put them in my suitcase and bring them to New Zealand because it's freaking cold there. Actually, New Zealand's not that cold. Well, Auckland's not that cold. Everyone talks like,
Mm.
oh, it's so cold in Auckland. Then I check the weather and I'm like, shut up, that's nothing. It's like 2 degrees, 1 degrees here. Like, shut up,
Mm.
that's nothing. Anyways, but yeah, like it's so cool to see that New Zealand is like, just going strong and fighting the pandemic and stuff like that. Um, you know, I do feel a bit proud when people talk about it at school.
Mm. We're very lucky here. Yeah,
um,
very lucky. And
yeah.
I think the most um just from a health professional perspective,
Mm,
we didn't get to the point where the ICUs were overwhelmed.
mm,
And that to me is the best thing that's happened
mm,
in regards to preparing for any outbreak.
mm.
Because, as I mentioned before, once those ICU beds are used up, man, it's just overflowing um, of what you call it, hot mess that's going to happen.
Mm.
Yeah.
And how would your coworkers describe you? What do you
My
think they would
co-
say if I asked them what kind of worker is Lina?
I reckon they'll say, get shit done.
Okay, love it. um,
Yeah. Yeah, my colleagues right now in the community will probably say that. Yeah.
mm,
If I was still working in a hospital, I'll
mm.
definitely be a hard worker. Because I was clocking in more than 80 hours fortnightly. Yeah.
Man, I hope they pay nurses good. I hope they pay our health workers good, our health professionals. Please tell me they do, sis, because man, that is a lot of hours to be clocking in. Is
Well,
the New Zealand government paying good money for you guys? I hope so.
Let's just say that they're freezing our pay for 3 years.
Oh, hey.
Did you hear
What?
that? Yeah.
Why?
I'm gonna ask Auntie Jacinda that.
Is that something that's just come into effect?
Recently, yeah. The DHB nurses, which is not us because we're primary health, but it eventually will affect us. DHB nurses are going on a strike. Yeah, I can't remember when, but they're going on a strike.
Man, freezing it for 3 years, that's pretty harsh, eh?
Yep.
Man, if you had a superhero power, what would your superhero power be?
I think it would have to be able to read minds. Yeah. Because then I'll be able to be like, hey, and if they're lying, I'll be like, okay, I know.
If you could live in any other country aside from New Zealand, Samoa, where would you live?
Hawaii.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
One day, sis. One day. Out. One day.
I
What do you What do you want the world to know about Samoa?
The history, or the fact that we've made history with the second lot of voting that's happening.
Oh my God. I mean, I don't really engage in all that Twitter chat that goes on.
Yeah.
But every now and then I see, if I'm scrolling on the timeline and I see, and I'm like, I'm not gonna engage, but I kind of caught something and I was like, oh my gosh, what on
Yeah.
earth?
Yeah.
Sis.
Just follow Samoa Twitter for all the latest updates.
For real, man. There are a lot of political commentators on there, everyday folks. Actually, while we're talking about that, something I forgot to mention earlier was social media and people on social media. Like I know, Samoa in 2019, there was the measles outbreak, right? So I guess, and then now we've got COVID, this past year, and it's still ongoing. I guess people using their platforms, social media and people using their platforms to, I don't know, do they think to educate, I guess, to educate people and to about their views on whether it's vaccines or they're against vaccines, how harmful, because we're not just talking about DC folk here, DC being dominant culture folk, we're actually talking about some of our very own people who are using their platforms to put out harmful information. Like for you as a health professional, I mean, I've seen you, I remember back then you were like up there, like using your platform to speak out, especially, with your medical background and stuff like that. Like, it's super harmful, man, what some of these people are doing. Like, but that's social media, right? Everyone has a platform now. And it's just, I feel like our people are always so quick to jump on and take sides and
Trying to
not,
be what?
yeah, trying to be woke and all that. I mean, damn, like how do you deal? I mean, I've seen how you deal, but like what is it? How much more challenging does that make your job as a healthcare professional when you've got people like this who are just putting out it's just like misinformation and using their views to sway public opinion, like
Yeah. I you know what? It's gotten to the point where hopefully in the future, it will become a paper in undergrad studies on online misinformation, because I really do think that people within our field need to know how to deal with that. Because a lot of them choose to ignore it, but without being realistic in regards to how it will affect a lot of people. So we've seen how bad the anti-vaxxers can get online. So when I confront them or when I call them out, the aim isn't necessarily to change their mind, it's to put out the correct messages
Yeah.
to the people who are reading the
Mm.
debate. A lot of these people are sitting on the fence.
Mm.
So the way we interact with them, the way we keep citing correct information, the way we provide proof
Mm.
of research articles or any policies of the areas that we work in, then hopefully that will persuade the people that are sitting on the fence reading the messages.
Mm.
So a lot of when I first started, because I didn't realize how big it was online.
Mm.
Um, it wasn't until Ames West
Mm.
on Twitter and on Instagram. It wasn't until I started following her on Instagram and I came across one of her stories where she called out Taseways,
Mm.
and then that's when I found out how bad it was getting. And what really got me was how she would always play her Pacific card to gain clout. Um, so yeah, but thankfully there are a lot of there's actually a pro-vaccine community on Twitter,
Mm.
and they give you a guideline of where to go for the research.
Mm.
Um, but of course, it's up to you as an individual to learn how to critique these articles that they give you, because you shouldn't just be critiquing what the anti-vaxxers throw at you, but also what
Mm.
the pro-vaxxers give you as well. And I think it's the biggest difference, because what really annoys me is when people say, "Oh, it's just that's my opinion. That's my opinion." But you know, 2 plus 2 is 4.
Mm.
Your opinion would be, "Oh, hang on, but 2 plus 2.5 is 4." That's not an opinion. You're just screwing with facts.
Mm.
It's just like how people want to change or add their own opinion about how the immune system works.
Mm.
It's flat out bullshit.
Mm.
And you try to explain it to them in the most basic terms, but they still deny how things work.
Mm.
Um, yeah, it's a whole lot of headache. But
Yeah.
but in real life, though, thankfully, in real life,
Mm.
it's they are a small percentage of the population of people who are actually pro-vaxxers,
Mm.
um, or people who would choose to have the vaccine because they either see it as a way of protecting others, or
Mm.
they don't want to get the actual disease, the mai. Yeah,
Because here, like just a few days ago, I read this article. Just it was actually on the news. So
yeah,
with the extension of with COVID still going on and the extension of the state of emergency, the
mm.
government had like in Shibuya, which is one of the main city areas here, the government had a truck because the way they get advertisements out here, especially if it's like new groups, new music groups, they have these trucks that drive around the big cities, like blasting the latest jam and all
Oh
that kind of
wow,
stuff, right? And so the government had these trucks, driving around Shibuya, just saying out loud, via the speakers, this is the state of emergency is being extended. This is what you have to do. These are the rules you have to follow. So that had that. And then these rude dude, anti-maskers, anti-vaxxer folk in a smaller truck following the government truck, blurting out, it's your right not to wear a mask. And it was just hilarious because they show on the news, you see the government official and then at the back of these lunatics, and it's
oh my
just kind
god,
of like, it's so crazy that, people, that just reminded me when you were talking. I was like, man, it's like these crazy people. I mean, there are
yeah,
people that assemble outside Shibuya station and they're like, just be free, take off your. I'm like, oh my,
yeah,
you
and
know?
it's absolutely crazy how you know surgeons
Mm.
and health officials that have been working in theaters, they wear masks for hours,
Mm.
and there hasn't been any. research evidence on the fact that it's doing them any harm. And since these protocols have come up about how you got to mask up, and these conspiracy theorists come along with their, oh, I can't breathe in my mask, and rah,
Oh
rah,
my
rah.
God. Right?
Yeah.
Our students train, like, with sports was cut right back, but they've still had some teams just training, like, looking forward to the next season. The kids were training in masks. Like, everything we do is in masks. It doesn't matter if your cellar is like, I'm like, let me just I need to breathe over here. Let me just breathe, have a break.
Yeah.
But we wear masks everywhere, like in everything that we do at school. And then you have these lunatics at the train stations who plan these, like, times on the trains where they're going to go on and just take off masks and stuff, and just, I mean, it's just, yeah,
They
I don't
want
know,
to
man.
be, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's so crazy because, out of nowhere, they suddenly cry out that they're feeling oppressed,
Mm,
and they compare the way they feel to major events like the Holocaust or
mm,
Black civil rights movements. And it's so disrespectful.
mm.
So disrespectful.
Um, yeah, I guess, just educate yourself. Don't get I guess, for, our audience and listeners, it's important to educate yourself and not get caught up in conspiracy theories. Do your research in regards to what you need to find out and need to know to look after your family. But yeah, it's crazy times, bringing up crazy ass peoples. Um,
Mm.
that's the time that we're living in.
Yeah, but it's also understandable how people are, because everyone that's alive now,
Mm,
um, I guess only a few are still alive from the last worldwide pandemic that happened,
mm.
with the polio and all
Oh
that.
yes, yes.
Um, so, a lot of people have never been through a pandemic before, and
Mm,
times have changed. Technology has improved a lot. Medical science has improved a lot. So, what people are not used to seeing, they can easily be afraid of.
mm,
But instead of listening to the people with the right information,
mm,
and also when you do go do your research, it's knowing how to research properly as well.
mm,
Classic example is if you follow someone with a platform and they screenshot abstracts,
mm,
without going through the whole article. The title and that bit of abstract can be very misleading.
mm,
So unless you go and download their full article,
mm.
sit down with a tool to learn how to critique it, and really do in-depth research to, get some better insight on what information is accurate and what information you should be avoiding. But
Mm.
honestly, anyone with a platform can manipulate any information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's just a lot of clickbait, right? A lot of
Hmm.
clickbait articles. Like you said, like, you have to do a lot of clicking to get to the root, to the actual original
Hmm.
article, right? But I think with the clickbait and all the ads and things and the algorithms, a lot of people don't go beyond that. Okay, I clicked on this. Oh my gosh, this doesn't look good. And then that's where the misinformation, and the panic, and it starts from there. Whereas if you click and keep going right back to the root, then you realize that along the way links have been added and things have changed in the article,
Yeah.
so it's just, yeah, like you said, like, take the time to really sit and analyze and research and look beyond just that surface level, which a lot of the times it's all clickbait. They've just put a couple of things together, put it up there, linked it, and then retweet, reshare, and it's,
Yeah. Yeah.
man. So were you a reader? You mentioned right at the beginning you were a reader growing up in school. Did you do much reading?
Yeah.
How was read
Um,
school?
so growing up, it was just when we first migrated to New Zealand, it
Mm,
was just my older sister and I.
mm,
Um, and I loved the bookstore. You know, the smell of new books was
mm,
everything. Mum made a habit to take us to the library when we were living in Johnsonville every day after school. And yeah, we would just get a whole lot of books. So I've quickly found that fantasy, sci-fi fantasy was my favorite genre of books to read.
mm.
Um, Especially if it was trilogies or something, anything to do with magic. That's me, man.
Yo, and so
Yeah.
what does Cadence, I mean, did you read to Cadence, or maybe you didn't even have time? Does she love to read, as she's been growing up? Does she love to read?
She used to, but I have to admit, she didn't. Yeah, she didn't grow up loving reading like
Mm.
me. Mm.
Man,
She'd rather
and
read people than read books.
okay, reading people's good too. So what are some of your, do you have any book recommendations for our listeners and for our audience? Or a favorite book recommendation perhaps?
Yeah, I was thinking about this. It's so funny because I'm just thinking back to when we were in Madua
Mm,
and there were hardly any books. You know, I had to leave a lot of my books behind because of the weight and all that. And then the Aupule at that time in Madua, his kids were avid readers.
wow.
And we would always take turns, like, okay, I'm after you reading that book. I love that because, you know, we had no TV in Malua. And as I already mentioned before, you know, I wasn't a real academic back then. So my favorite pastimes in Samoa was when it was raining and I had Vicks and a good book. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so for our listeners and viewers and for our audience, Malua is our church, our theological college in Samoa, and that's what Lina's talking about. So, if what book would you recommend? Um, you
I
know,
if no one has mentioned this before, I definitely want to recommend Lani Went's the Tisa trilogy books. Only because, especially if you're not living in Samoa, because if you're into the sci-fi fantasy, this is definitely your book to read. And the way that she describes all the scenes,
mm,
and when you actually go to Samoa, you're like, shucks, this is where this and this happened and
right,
that
right.
happened. Yeah, it's bringing our country to life in her books and all our, you know, cultural stories as well. Yeah, I haven't read a fiction book for a long time, but if I was to ever recommend
Yeah.
books, it would be that one from
Well,
those set of books. Yeah.
so I will put the pictures up, the book covers up so that people will know, and they'll know what to look up. I guess then, words of encouragement. I mean, you have shared. It's been so cool to have you on the show, just because I've just like pretty much like learned a lot about just your work and your career. And I know we could go on and on, but I know you got church in the morning. I know
Ah,
it's like nearly 1 o'clock there in New Zealand, 2 a.m. I think, nearly 1 a.m., 1:30. I mean, you know, you've you've dropped so many jewels and gems tonight. Like I'm so happy that I know you're busy, sis, but I'm so grateful that you had made time just to join us on the show. Like, it's such
Yeah,
an
looking like
honor to
trash
have
on
you
your
on
phone.
here. Stop it. It's such an honor to have you on here, and man, you're such an expert in your field. Like, listening to you, I'm just so like, oh, I need to look that up. I need to research that. I need to find out more. And I love that
Oh, God.
that you're working in your community and giving back to your local people. Um, like, definitely need more of you, in the field for sure. But, what are some words of encouragement? I guess, for our Pasifika people, but just in general for, for any listeners and viewers, what are some words of wisdom that you want to drop? Some life words of wisdom that you have, or a favorite quote, or a verse that keeps you motivated and driven, just in regards to, your journey, your life journey.
Oh, I guess my main words of encouragement to everyone is it's never too late to pick up a career. Doesn't matter where you are in life right now. Doesn't necessarily have to be something that you're passionate about, but always think about what's stable, especially after seeing what the pandemic's done to a lot of us. Um, Find something that's stable, find something that you know that you can grow in professionally and also in other areas as well. If you are a single mum, keep your focus on, getting that future because no one else is going to do it apart from you. Um, have your support network up and running and don't worry about what other people are thinking about, you being pregnant out of wedlock or whatever. Do your baby or babies if you have more than one child. Because in the end, that's your investment for your future. What you put in is what also your children um are gonna get rewarded for in the future. I can't think of anything else to say right now.
So much love and respect for you, sis. Seriously, your grind is relentless. Your passion, man, it's super inspirational. And I know that your story and the things that you've shared, is definitely going to resonate with our listeners. And, even if it's just one person, man, that's all that matters, right? Just,
Sure.
if your story can touch one or, a few people, man, that's what the show is about, right? It's just,
Yeah.
so again, thank you, sis, so much for coming on the show. I do appreciate you so much.